Hello Zenith women and welcome to the channel. The most fascinating things people do are always done in private. Charles Bukowski. But what if I told you the most fascinating of all are the things Sigma females do when the world isn't watching? Here's a fact. Psychologists have found that what people do in solitude often reveals their truest selves. Yet, with Sigma females, enigmatic, independent, and borderline untouchable, it's not just about revealing their true selves, it's about sharpening them into something even more formidable. Picture this. While everyone else is desperately curating their online personas for validation, Sigma females are quietly building themselves into forces of nature behind closed doors. It's like they've found a secret level in life's game where the only competition is their own potential, and spoiler alert, it's a level most people will never even discover. What exactly are these extraordinary women doing when the curtains are drawn and the world's prying eyes are locked out? Buckle up because you're about to find out, and trust me, it's nothing like you'd expect. Number 1, observing the world as a specimen. Sigma. Females observe the world with a kind of sharp detachment that feels almost surgical. They're not just living life, they're dissecting it. It's not paranoia or arrogance, it's an unending curiosity about how things work beneath the surface. They watch people the way a scientist studies a specimen, not for entertainment or gossip, but to understand patterns, motivations, and weaknesses. While most people get swept up in social norms and expectations, Sigma females stand outside the chaos, analyzing it from angles most people don't even realize exist. They see how easily others fall into conformity, how peer pressure masquerades as genuine desire, how the need for approval drives almost every decision. It's not that they're completely above these influences, they're human after all, but they've trained themselves to detect the strings being pulled. And more importantly, they know when to cut those strings before they get tangled. This observational nature makes them hyper-aware of manipulation tactics, groupthink, and emotional traps. They notice the fake smiles, the power plays disguised as kindness, the subtle shifts in tone that betray hidden agendas. And they don't just notice these things, they catalog them, refine their understanding, and adapt. It's like they're gathering data on the world, not to exploit it, but to protect themselves from its absurdity and deception. Because they watch from a distance, they often pick up on truths others would rather ignore. The way most people chase validation like it's oxygen, the desperate need to be liked, to be understood, to fit in. Sigma females see how often people sacrifice their own identity just to be accepted by those who barely care. To them, it's a tragic comedy, a cycle they've vowed never to fall into. The irony is, this detached observation doesn't make them cold or heartless. If anything, it makes them more empathetic, but only toward those who are genuine. They're not fooled by charm or charisma. They look straight through the glitter and catch the cracks. This ability to analyze the world with brutal clarity is their shield and their sword, and because of it, they rarely let anyone close. Most people would call it loneliness. Sigma females call it freedom. Number 2, designing psychological weapons. Sigma. Females are architects of their own psychological defenses, constructing mental fortresses so intricately designed that few can even comprehend their complexity. They're not obsessed with revenge or petty power plays. Their focus is on building a mental arsenal that ensures their autonomy remains untouchable. They don't just react to manipulation, they anticipate it, decode it, and dismantle it before it even becomes a threat. Their approach is rooted in observation and analysis. They study social dynamics the way a chess master studies the board, always several steps ahead, predicting moves, counter-moves, and the hidden intentions behind every gesture and word. They read between the lines, detecting manipulation tactics that would fly right over most people's heads. Whether it's subtle gaslighting, emotional coercion, or strategic flattery, they spot the game before it even begins. But their genius doesn't stop at detection. Sigma females take it further by constructing counter-strategies tailored to neutralize each specific tactic. If someone tries to guilt-trip them, they respond with calculated detachment, refusing to absorb emotions that don't belong to them. If someone attempts to undermine their confidence, they've already fortified their self-belief with unshakable self-awareness. They don't argue or waste time proving themselves to others. Their actions speak louder than any retort ever could. Their psychological weapons aren't crude or aggressive. Instead, they're sharp, precise, and highly sophisticated. They build mental blueprints for various scenarios, rehearsing possible conflicts and planning their responses with surgical precision. This isn't paranoia, it's preparation. Because they know that the world isn't always a fair or kind place, and being unprepared is a luxury they simply can't afford. This meticulous approach gives them a level of psychological resilience that feels almost unnatural to those around them. People who try to manipulate or control them often find themselves disarmed and bewildered, as if they've stepped into a trap they didn't even realize was there. And once someone's true intentions are exposed, the Sigma female makes a mental note, ensuring that person never gets a second chance to exploit her. It's not about building walls to shut everyone out. It's about constructing an inner labyrinth so intricate that only the worthy can navigate it. And for those who attempt to manipulate her, they soon discover that she's not just playing the game, she's rewriting the rules. Number 3, practicing ruthless self-interrogation, Sigma. Females don't just reflect on their thoughts, they interrogate them with the kind of merciless precision that would leave most people shattered. Reflection is passive, gentle, even forgiving, but interrogation, that's a whole different beast. It's raw, unfiltered, and often unforgiving. They scrutinize their own thoughts, beliefs, and motivations with the intensity of a prosecutor tearing into a suspect's alibi. If their logic is flawed, they dismantle it. If their emotions are clouding their judgment, they confront it head-on. They hold nothing sacred in this process, especially not their own comfort. Most people shy away from acknowledging their weaknesses, treating their flaws like fragile glass that needs careful handling. Sigma females, however, smash that glass and sift through the pieces until they understand exactly what went wrong. And when they rebuild, it's not with the same brittle material, it's with steel. Their self-interrogation is relentless and unending. They don't wait for failures or setbacks to force them into introspection. They proactively seek out their own blind spots before anyone else can exploit them. If they notice themselves avoiding a particular challenge, they ask why. If they feel an irrational surge of anger or jealousy, they dissect it until they uncover its true source. They question their own motives, their habits, their desires. Nothing is off limits. Are they pursuing a goal because it genuinely matters to them, or because it's expected of them? Are their fears grounded in reality or mere projections of past wounds? They confront their own hypocrisies and insecurities with the ferocity of someone who refuses to be their own worst enemy. It's not an easy process. In fact, it's brutal, but that's precisely the point. Sigma females would rather endure the pain of harsh self-interrogation than suffer the humiliation of having someone else expose their weaknesses. By holding themselves accountable with such intensity, they build mental resilience that most people can't even fathom. The result? A mind that is not only sharp but nearly impenetrable. When others try to manipulate, insult, or undermine them, they find no loose threads to pull. Sigma females have already unraveled themselves, examined every flaw, and rebuilt their psyche with reinforced understanding. They are their own harshest critics, their own relentless teachers, and their own fiercest allies. Number 4, imposing mental fast periods, Sigma. Females have a rare and powerful habit of imposing mental fast periods. It's not about some trendy digital detox or temporary break from social media for the sake of self-care. It's a deliberate and often brutal purge of all external noise to sharpen their own mental clarity. They cut off the constant bombardment of information, news, social media, shallow conversations, even popular opinions, like dead weight. Not because they think they're above it, but because they recognize how easily it can pollute their thoughts and distort their inner compass. The world is always screaming for attention, drowning people in a sea of shallow content, artificial urgency, and manipulated outrage. Sigma females refuse to let their minds be puppeteered by such nonsense. During these fasts, their phones become nothing more than tools, not chains. They reject the daily dose of bad news designed to trigger fear and anxiety. They shut out the endless scroll of curated lives meant to spark envy or insecurity, conversations that lack depth or substance. They drop them without hesitation. This isn't arrogance, it's discipline, a controlled starvation of everything that clouds their mind. What's left is pure, uninterrupted introspection. Without the world's noise, their own thoughts rise to the surface, sharper and clearer than ever. They use this time to confront their own weaknesses, assess their growth, and plan their next steps with cold precision. It's a time for recalibration, for making sure their decisions are their own and not echoes of societal expectations. The irony is, while most people think constant connectivity makes them more aware, Sigma females know the opposite is true. True awareness requires moments of complete disconnection. They embrace the silence like a long-lost friend, diving into it with an intensity most people would find terrifying. But for them, it's freedom, it's clarity. And when they finally return to the world, they do so with a mind fortified, unclouded, and immune to the petty distractions that enslave everyone else. Number 5, refining their own madness. Sigma. Females have a way of taking what others see as madness and turning it into pure brilliance. They've never been interested in fitting into the conventional mold or diluting their quirks to appear acceptable. Instead, they dive headfirst into their own eccentricities, exploring them like treasure maps leading to undiscovered strengths. They understand something most people never will. True power often lies in what society considers strange or unconventional. Rather than suppressing their peculiarities to fit some watered-down standard of normalcy, they refine them until those same oddities become razor-sharp tools, the habits others mock, the ideas others dismiss, the unconventional ways they process the world. Sigma females take all of it and sharpen it into something exceptional. Their so-called madness could be an obsessive attention to detail that others find exhausting. To them, it's precision. It could be an overwhelming need for solitude that others mistake for antisocial behavior. To them, it's the fertile ground where creativity flourishes. Even their habit of overthinking, something most people consider a flaw, becomes a weapon when harnessed correctly. They deconstruct thoughts like puzzles, searching for patterns, insights, hidden angles others are too distracted to see. What most call insanity, they call ingenuity. Because while others are busy trying to fit in, Sigma females are too busy refining their own brilliance to even notice. They take what others label as flaws and craft them into skills so effective it leaves people speechless. It's a relentless process of editing themselves, cutting away what doesn't serve them and amplifying what does. They've learned to be alchemists of their own madness, turning every quirk and oddity into gold. They know that the same society, quick to label them as strange, will be the first to marvel at their genius once it's undeniable. And they aren't afraid to be misunderstood in the process. They'd rather be authentic and powerful than palatable and ordinary. Their madness is their masterpiece. While everyone else is busy playing it safe, Sigma females are out there turning their wildest, most unconventional traits into an art form. Number 6, running psychological audits. Sigma. Females have a habit of running psychological audits on themselves that would make even the most ruthless critic seem gentle. They don't just reflect, they dissect. With the cold precision of an auditor searching for flaws in a complex system, they scrutinize their own thoughts, beliefs, desires, and habits with a level of brutal honesty most people are terrified to confront. This isn't a casual exercise in self-awareness, it's a relentless, unsparing process of questioning everything they think they know about themselves. Why do they desire what they desire? Are their goals truly theirs, or are they just echoes of societal expectations? Is their anger justified, or is it just old resentment they've been dragging around like dead weight? They dismantle their own beliefs with the same intensity others use to defend theirs. If something feels outdated, irrational, or simply unproductive, they purge it without remorse. To a Sigma female, clinging to outdated mental frameworks is like wearing chains, comforting maybe, but ultimately just a slow death for their potential. They've learned that true growth requires a willingness to question everything, even their own motives. This process often leaves them feeling like they're burning down parts of themselves, but that's precisely the point, to rebuild stronger, smarter, sharper. It's mental spring cleaning taken to an extreme, where no assumption is safe, no belief too precious to be put on trial. And it's not just about eliminating the negative. They also hunt for strengths they've overlooked, skills they've underutilized, desires they've suppressed for fear of judgment. When they find something valuable, they nurture it, allowing it to grow without interference from external opinions or outdated self-doubt. Sigma females know that their own mind can be their greatest asset or their worst enemy. So they conduct these psychological audits regularly, cutting away dead weight and nurturing anything that helps them evolve. Most people are terrified of confronting their own flaws and contradictions. Sigma females rip them apart, analyze them, and either eliminate or enhance them. It's a ruthless process, but the results speak for themselves. A sharper mind, a stronger identity, a blueprint that's constantly evolving, growing, and adapting. Number 7. Cultivating controlled vulnerability, Sigma. Females understand that vulnerability isn't something to be flaunted or thrown around recklessly. They know the world often mistakes kindness for weakness and sees vulnerability as an open wound waiting to be exploited. So they've mastered the art of cultivating controlled vulnerability, a process that happens strictly on their own terms, behind locked doors and away from prying eyes. They allow themselves moments of rawness and emotional release, but only within the sanctuary of their solitude. It's where they drop every mask, dismantle their defenses, and confront their own darkness without the interference of anyone else's judgment. It's not denial, it's strategic isolation. Because for them, exposing their pain to the wrong person is like handing a predator the blueprint to their downfall. They embrace their own brokenness without flinching. Anger, grief, disappointment, it all gets acknowledged and dissected. But rather than drowning in their own emotions or seeking sympathy, they analyze their pain with the same meticulousness they apply to everything else. It's like emotional alchemy. They process their own wounds, extract the lessons, and discard the rest. This deliberate approach to vulnerability gives them a kind of emotional resilience that's rare and powerful. They don't deny their pain or pretend to be invincible. Instead, they refine it, sharpening their own emotional intelligence until they can transform even the most excruciating experiences into sources of strength. They break down so they can rebuild, stronger and more unshakable than before. The world often views vulnerability as a weakness, a fragile thing to be hidden or protected. But Sigma females flip that narrative. They see it as a resource, something to be controlled, cultivated, and weaponized for their own growth. They'll allow themselves to cry, rage, and grieve, but only within a space where those emotions can be fully understood and transformed. They've learned the hard way that not everyone deserves to witness their pain. So they keep their vulnerability locked away from opportunists and parasites. When they re-emerge, it's with clarity and resolve, with their emotions refined into pure, unbreakable strength. It's not that they refuse to feel, it's that they refuse to let their feelings be exploited. Number 8, mapping out their next identity, evolution, Sigma. Females are in a constant state of evolution. They don't just grow, they actively and relentlessly rebuild themselves from the ground up. For them, identity isn't something static or pre-packaged by society's expectations. It's a construct they mold, reshape, and sharpen as they see fit. And when parts of themselves become outdated or ineffective, they discard them without hesitation. They approach their own identity like a sculptor chipping away at marble, ruthless in eliminating anything that doesn't serve their vision. Old beliefs, outdated habits, irrelevant ambitions, they all get tossed aside the moment they become liabilities rather than assets. This process isn't about trying to be someone else. It's about becoming the purest, most efficient version of themselves. They map out their evolution with a level of precision most people would never even consider. It starts with brutal self-assessment, scrutinizing their current state, acknowledging their flaws, and pinpointing the areas where they've grown complacent. Once they've identified the parts of themselves that need refining or replacing, they set a new blueprint. And then they get to work. Their goals and ambitions aren't stagnant, so why should their identity be? They understand that clinging to an old version of themselves simply because it's familiar is the fastest way to stagnate. Reinvention is their antidote to mediocrity. They're willing to tear down their own foundations if it means building something stronger. Most people are terrified of change because it feels like losing themselves. But Sigma females see change as a necessary shedding of skin, a way to keep moving forward, free from the weight of who they used to be. They don't just adapt to change, they initiate it. They're the architects of their own evolution, constantly dismantling and rebuilding themselves to align with their shifting ambitions. And they don't care if others struggle to keep up or feel uncomfortable with their constant transformation. To a Sigma female, staying the same for too long is far more terrifying than the unknown. They have no interest in preserving a static identity to please others or to appear consistent. Consistency to them is just another word for complacency. This relentless process of self-reinvention is what makes them unstoppable. While others cling desperately to outdated versions of themselves, Sigma females are already 10 steps ahead, building, refining, evolving. Number 9, indulging in private rituals. Sigma. Females have a knack for creating their own world, complete with rituals and routines that would seem bizarre to anyone else. It's not about quirkiness for the sake of being different. It's about constructing private sanctuaries where their minds can roam freely, untethered by societal expectations or the noisy demands of the outside world. These private rituals are their way of recharging, recalibrating, and realigning with their own essence. They might have strange hobbies that border on obsessive, collecting obscure knowledge, learning unconventional skills, or immersing themselves in peculiar art forms that most people wouldn't even glance at. It's not that they're trying to be unique, it's that their interests don't conform to mainstream appetites, and that's precisely what keeps them fiercely independent. Some Sigma females engage in unusual forms of meditation, not necessarily the serene lotus pose kind, but something raw and unfiltered. Maybe it's talking out loud to themselves, processing thoughts with a bluntness most people would find unnerving. Maybe it's scribbling chaotic thoughts into journals only they can decipher, or going for midnight walks where the silence of the world sharpens their clarity. They nurture these rituals with the dedication of an artist perfecting their craft. To the outside world, these habits might seem strange, even unhinged, but for them, it's how they maintain their emotional and intellectual autonomy. These rituals are like anchors, keeping them steady in a world that constantly tries to pull them into its madness. Sigma females understand the importance of having something that's theirs and theirs alone, a sanctuary that no one else can intrude upon or corrupt. They don't need validation or company to enjoy their peculiarities. In fact, the very act of keeping these rituals private makes them even more sacred. Their rituals aren't meant to be understood or approved by anyone else. They are acts of rebellion against conformity, expressions of individuality that refuse to be diluted. These moments of indulgence are where they reconnect with their deepest selves, far from the prying eyes and shallow judgments of others. And when they return to the world, they do so fortified, unshakable, and unapologetically authentic. Their rituals are not just habits, they're lifelines. Number 10, simulating scenarios of failure. Sigma. Females have a habit of staring failure in the face long before it even has the chance to happen. They mentally map out worst-case scenarios with the precision of a strategist preparing for war. And it's not about pessimism or morbid fascination. It's about building psychological armor thick enough to withstand anything life throws their way. They play out their fears like detailed simulations, allowing themselves to experience every potential setback, embarrassment, or catastrophe in their mind's eye. But unlike most people who would crumble under such grim imaginings, Sigma females use these mental exercises as weapons. By the time a real challenge appears, they've already rehearsed it countless times, dissected every flaw, and figured out multiple escape routes. It's not just preparation, it's preemptive adaptation. They explore every angle of failure until it loses its power over them. By confronting their fears in a controlled environment inside their own heads, they transform anxiety into something they can manipulate, understand, and eventually neutralize. The result? Fear becomes nothing more than an obstacle to be studied, mastered, and conquered. They do this with brutal honesty too, no sugarcoating or false optimism. They assess their weaknesses without mercy, acknowledging the areas where they are most vulnerable, but instead of allowing those vulnerabilities to paralyze them, they weaponize them. They turn them into lessons, reminders, and blueprints for future action. Most people are terrified of failure because they refuse to acknowledge it as a possibility until it's too late. But Sigma females take a completely different approach. They bring their worst fears to the surface and tear them apart until nothing about them feels intimidating anymore. It's like developing immunity to poison by consuming small doses over time. Their ability to simulate scenarios of failure also makes them remarkably adaptable. When real setbacks occur, they respond with the calm efficiency of someone who has already endured the worst possible outcomes 1,000 times over. While others are paralyzed by shock or denial, Sigma females are already moving forward, equipped with contingency plans that were forged in the fires of their own ruthless imagination. Failure doesn't scare them because they've already faced it in their minds and emerged victorious. And when you've already confronted your darkest fears head-on, the real world feels far less daunting. Number 11, decoding personal anomalies. Sigma. Females treat their own peculiarities like treasure maps, tracing every strange impulse, odd habit, and unconventional preference with the keen eye of a detective on the hunt for hidden meaning. Where most people dismiss their quirks as flaws or embarrassing eccentricities to be concealed, Sigma females see them as clues, pieces of a larger puzzle that, once assembled, reveal their most authentic selves. They understand that their uniqueness isn't something to be eradicated, but something to be deciphered. So they investigate their own minds with relentless curiosity. Why do they prefer solitude over social gatherings? Why do certain conversations feel draining while others are exhilarating? Why do they find joy in activities most people would never consider remotely interesting? These questions are not dismissed, they're examined with painstaking detail. Sigma females approach their quirks with a level of analytical precision that would put most therapists to shame. They break down their own behaviors, questioning motivations, tracing patterns, and connecting dots until the fog clears and the truth reveals itself. What others call weird, they call potential. What others see as weakness, they see as an unrefined strength. It's a form of psychological alchemy. When they identify a trait that seems counterproductive or socially awkward, they don't try to suppress it. Instead, they refine it, mold it, and figure out how to use it to their advantage. Maybe their tendency to overanalyze everything becomes a superpower for problem solving. Maybe their discomfort in social situations leads them to master observation skills most people would overlook. They even embrace the contradictions within themselves. Maybe they're both introverted and deeply curious about the world. Maybe they crave independence but still yearn for deep, meaningful connections. Instead of trying to fit themselves into neat categories, they merge all these contradictions into something uniquely powerful. Sigma females don't aim for normalcy because normalcy is a bland cage built by conformity. They crave authenticity, and authenticity often looks strange, even chaotic, to those who are too afraid to dig beneath the surface. But it's in that chaos that they find their strength. By decoding their own anomalies, Sigma females create a blueprint for themselves that is both complex and remarkably effective. What others see as flaws, they turn into tools. What others label as madness, they transform into brilliance. A Sigma female's world is one of calculated chaos and disciplined freedom, a paradox that only she can master. While others scramble to fit themselves into predefined molds, she sculpts her own reality with fierce precision and unyielding authenticity. Whether she's designing psychological weapons, purging unwanted influences, or curating her own evolution, every act is deliberate, unapologetic, and breathtakingly effective. Her solitude is not a void, but a sanctuary. Her rituals are not obsessions, but strategies. And her quirks are not flaws, but the signatures of a mind that refuses to be tamed. She thrives where most would crumble, crafting resilience from reflection and power from introspection. Sigma females are architects of their own brilliance, unafraid to deconstruct and reconstruct themselves until the masterpiece matches their vision. They don't seek validation because they are their own harshest critics and greatest admirers. They don't chase acceptance because their own standards are higher than anything the world could impose. What the world sees as mystery or madness is, in truth, a testament to her mastery. And while others may never understand the depths of her inner world, that's precisely the point. Because the Sigma female's greatest power lies not in being understood, but in remaining untouchable. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the mind of a Sigma female and found yourself captivated by her unmatched brilliance, don't leave just yet. Make sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on more powerful, eye-opening content like this. Like this video, drop a comment below sharing your thoughts, and let me know which of these Sigma female traits resonated with you the most. And of course, share this video with anyone who needs to understand the extraordinary world of Sigma females. Your support helps this channel grow and inspires me to bring you even more of the very best. Thanks for watching. Now go out there and unleash your own brilliance.